Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a piece of music that really split opinions. It's a song that climbed the charts, got a Grammy nomination, but at the same time, a lot of the band's hardcore fans just hated it.
They really did.
We are talking about Lonely Day by System of a Down.
Yeah, it's such an outlier in their whole catalog. I mean, you think System of Down, you think this intense, often chaotic, complex metal sound.
Totally. Genre bending, political lyrics, Serj Tankian's vocals going all over the place. They're this iconic Armenian-American band known for not sounding like anyone else.
Exactly. And then Lonely Day comes along.
Released in 2005, second single off Hypnotize, which, is part two of that big Mesmerize Hypnotize double album release.
A huge moment for the band.
But this song, it's just completely different. It's like a melodic alternative rock ballad, almost straightforward.
And the really key thing, the massive shift, is that it's written and sung entirely by Daron Malakian, the guitarist, not Serj.
Which was a huge deal. That deviation alone caused this immediate split, this schism in the fan base and among critics.
Oh, absolutely. On the one side, you've got massive commercial success, global hit, that Grammy nomination for Best Hard Rock Performance. Clearly it connected with a huge audience.
But then you look at the reviews, the online forums back then, the diehard fans.
Venomous is a good word. People called it simplistic, cursy, like corny.
Right, corny. Or a sellout move. A betrayal, even, of their complex, non-commercial sound.
Yeah, like if it wasn't this whirlwind of odd time signatures and, political rage, it wasn't real System of a Down. That was the vibe for some.
So our mission today is basically to challenge that dismissal. We're arguing that the song's apparent simplicity, the very thing people criticize, is actually, well, incredibly dense. Emotionally, philosophically dense.
We've pulled together insights from psychology, linguistics, even philosophy of law to really get under the skin of it. We're putting 4 key lines under a transdisciplinary microscope.
Okay, let's do it. Where do we start? Probably with the line that caused the most immediate fuss, right?
It has to be. The one that just set everyone off, became this kind of cultural lightning rod.
Okay, laid it on us, the first lyrical anchor.
Such a lonely day and it's mine. The most loneliest day of my life.
Ah, yes. The most loneliest. The grammar police had a field day with that one.
They absolutely did. I mean, grammatically speaking, it's redundant, right? A double superlative. Loneliest is already the most. Adding most is technically incorrect.
Textbook error. So the critics jumped on it as proof of what, lazy writing? Poor lyrics.
Pretty much. Based on prescriptive grammar, the rules of how language should be, it was just wrong. Therefore, bad.
But, okay, if we shift perspectives, maybe think about it from, say, semiotics, the study of signs and meaning. Does that change how we see it?
It changes everything. Because semiotics isn't just about rules, it's about how signs function to create meaning. And from that angle, the error, the incorrectness, isn't a failure.
It's something else.
It's a signifier. It signifies authenticity.
Yeah.
It functions as an emphatic intensifier.
Okay, break that down. Emphatic intensifier.
Well, think about it. If you just said the loneliest day, fine. Standard grammar, standard level of intensity. But what if the feeling is just bigger than that? So overwhelming, so crushing, that standard language doesn't cut it.
You need more.
You need more. So you break the rules. You add the most because loneliest alone feels insufficient. You're prioritizing the raw feeling, the visceral impact, over grammatical tidiness. It's like the language itself is straining, almost breaking, under the weight of the emotion.
So the mistake is actually showing the intensity of the feeling. The feeling is too big for proper grammar.
Exactly. It's not bad writing. It's language failing in the face of overwhelming affect. And that, I think, is why it resonated with so many people. The mass audience felt that raw honesty.
They recognized the feeling, even if it wasn't grammatically perfect.
Right. The emotional connection, the effective resonance, it just bypassed the linguistic purity argument. The Grammy nod kind of proves that, in a way. Feeling trumped grammar.
That completely reframes it. What seemed clumsy becomes this really potent way of showing extreme emotion. But there's the second part of that line, too.
Yeah.
And it's mine.
Yes. This shifts us slightly from the intensity of the day to the ownership of it.
Which brings us into psychology, maybe.
Definitely. We can look at this through the lens of the psychology of affective possession. It combines ideas from existential psychology and cognitive linguistics.
Affective possession. Okay.
So, cognitive linguistics points out how often we use possessive language, my pain, my joy, my day, for abstract experiences. We talk about feelings or situations as if they're concrete objects we can hold or own.
Why do we do that?
It helps us mentally grasp them, makes the abstract feel more concrete, something we can grapple with.
Okay, so saying it's mine.
It's more than just acknowledging the loneliness. Daron's character here is claiming it, possessing it, identifying with it.
How does existential psychology see that?
Well, in moments of really profound suffering or anguish, the pain can stop feeling like something that's just happening to you. It can feel like it's something you are. Your identity fuses with the suffering. It's not just a condition anymore. It's part of your being.
But hang on, isn't owning your feelings usually seen as a good thing, like taking responsibility?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this specific ownership, my most loneliest day, presented as, well, kind of tragic here?
That's a really important distinction. Owning your stuff is usually step one towards dealing with it, right?
Okay.
But here, the ownership is absolute, and it's tied to that broken superlative. It's the most extreme day, and it's mine.
Implying
It's uniquely mine. That nobody else could possibly experience or understand loneliness on this scale. The combination, the double superlative plus the possessive claim, it creates this psychological bubble.
a bubble of isolation.
Exactly. A bubble of absolute isolation. It's the worst day, and it belongs only to the speaker. It sort of implicitly excludes any possibility of shared experience, of comfort, of anyone else getting it. It becomes this declaration of sovereign despair. My pain is unique and untouchable.
Wow. Okay, so what the critics heard as just bad grammar, we're now hearing is this complex statement of profound exclusive suffering. That's quite a shift.
It really is. And that feeling of being trapped in that isolation, feeling powerless against it, leads us right into the next key phrase.
Or the speaker seems to be looking for some kind of external solution, right?
Precisely. Section 2, we're calling it the legislation of feeling, and the line is just extraordinary. Such a lonely day should be banned. It's a day that I can't stand.
Should be banned. I mean, that's wild. You can't ban a feeling or a day defined by a feeling. It sounds almost childlike in its desperation.
It does, but it's also incredibly revealing. This is where we bring in ideas from, believe it or not, the philosophy of law, what we might call effective jurisprudence.
Okay, how does law philosophy help us understand wanting to ban a lonely day?
Well, we have to think about what banning actually means in a legal or political sense. Banning is a state power, right? It's reserved for things seen as concrete threats to public order or safety weapons, certain drugs, hate speech, stuff like that. The law governs actions, property, external things.
It doesn't really govern internal states. It can't legislate how I feel, just what I do about it.
Exactly. So when the speaker demands that a lonely day be banned, they're effectively personifying the emotion, treating it like it's some kind of external enemy, a pollutant, a dangerous substance, a plague that needs to be legally wiped out.
It's not just, I wish this feeling would stop. It's, society must make this feeling illegal.
Yes. It's a desperate appeal to external authority to annihilate an internal state. And in doing that, the line perfectly highlights the limits of law and politics.
How so?
Because legal systems, political systems, they can regulate behavior, they can manage property, but they fundamentally cannot reach into your subjective experience and banish sadness or loneliness. It's outside their jurisdiction.
So the cry to ban the day is really a sign of complete powerlessness.
Utter powerlessness over the internal experience. The speaker is reaching for the biggest, most powerful tool society seems to offer: state-sanctioned prohibition to solve the most intimate internal problem imaginable. And it's futile.
It's like trying to use a sledgehammer to fix a watch. The scale is just wrong. What about the psychological angle on this? Wanting to banish the day.
From a phenomenological psychology standpoint, which focuses on lived experience, this really captures what severe depression or overwhelming emotional pain feels like. It doesn't feel temporary or manageable.
It feels wrong.
Fundamentally wrong, like an oppressive, intolerable state that violates the very nature of how things should be. Its existence feels so unnatural that the mind rebels and demands its cessation, its banning.
It goes beyond just sadness into something that feels like it shouldn't exist.
Yes, and cognitive psychology can add another layer here, talking about cognitive distortions.
Like what?
Well, this desire to ban the day looks a lot like catastrophic thinking, or perhaps more accurately, emotional reasoning.
Emotional reasoning.
That's when your feelings dictate your interpretation of reality. The feeling of loneliness is so incredibly intense, so unbearable, I can't stand it, that the brain concludes the feeling itself, or the day causing it, must be objectively wrong, a violation that needs to be eradicated by extreme measures.
The sheer intensity of the feeling makes the speaker believe its existence is a kind of crime against nature that needs a legal remedy.
Pretty much. The feeling overwhelms rational thought, leading to this desperate, impossible demand. It signals that all internal coping mechanisms have failed. They need an act of God, or, an act of government, to fix what's inside.
Which makes that simple line, should be banned, just packed with meaning. It's the ultimate cry of being overwhelmed. Okay, so from that point of isolation and desperation, the song takes another huge turn in the bridge.
A massive turn. We move from this intense internal focus to an equally intense interpersonal one. Section 3, the codependence of despair.
And the lines here are probably the most quoted and maybe the most misunderstood part of the song.
Absolutely. The anchor is, and if you go, I want to go with you, and if you die, I want to die with you.
Right. The lines that sound like the ultimate declaration of romantic devotion, like peak Romeo and Juliet stuff. I literally cannot live without you.
That's the common reading, definitely. It gets used in that romantic context all the time. But if we apply a different lens, specifically attachment theory and the psychology of grief.
Uh-oh. I sense we're going somewhere darker.
Well, it certainly complicates the romantic reading. From this perspective, what looks like devotion starts to look more like a manifestation of an anxious, preoccupied, or maybe even disorganized attachment style, taken to its extreme, tragic conclusion.
Okay, explain that. Healthy bond versus anxious, preoccupied attachment.
A healthy bond involves deep connection, love, interdependence, sure, but the individuals maintain their own sense of self, their own core identity. Anxious, preoccupied attachment, though, is defined by this intense fear of abandonment, a constant need for reassurance and closeness. It often leads to codependency.
Where your sense of self gets blurred with the other person's.
Exactly. Your self-worth, your emotional stability, even your basic will to function becomes dependent on the other person's presence and approval.
So how does that link to, if you go, I want to go, if you die, I want to die?
It suggests a complete fusion of identity. The I has become so enmeshed with the you that the prospect of the you leaving, whether just moving away, go, or die, isn't just about future sadness or grief. It represents the annihilation of the self.
The I literally cannot exist without the you.
That's the implication. The loss isn't survivable because the self, as it currently exists, is entirely dependent on the other. Its function, its viability, ceases if the other is gone.
Now, hold on. Is that fair? I mean, can't it just be hyperbole? Extreme poetic language for deep love. Are we maybe reading too much pathology into it?
It's a valid challenge. Hyperbole exists in love songs, of course, but the immediacy and absoluteness here feel different. It's not, I'll miss you terribly, or life will be hard without you. It's, if you cease to be here, I will cease to be here. That steps beyond grief into, frankly, direct suicidal ideation contingent on the other person's fate.
So it reframes the romantic trope.
It kind of desensitizes it, yeah. It presents it less as noble devotion and more as a symptom of complicated grief, extreme codependency, where individual existence has lost its independent meaning. It's not, I want to join you in the afterlife. It's more like, my operating system requires your presence to boot up.
That's a stark image. And this idea of losing independent meaning, does that connect to broader societal ideas?
It does, actually. We can bring in sociology here, specifically Emil Durkheim's work on suicide.
Durkheim. How does he fit into a System of a Down song?
Well, Durkheim famously linked suicide rates to levels of social integration and regulation. We often hear about enemy suicide due to lack of social connection or norms, but Durkheim also identified the opposite problem: excessive social integration.
Too much connection. How does that work?
He called the extreme form altruistic suicide. It happens when an individual's identity is so completely absorbed by a group or a leader, or in this case, perhaps a single relationship, that their personal life loses significance outside of that bond.
So, like ancient warriors or servants who'd kill themselves when their king or master died.
Exactly that kind of dynamic. Their sense of self was entirely tied to the other. Here, it's like a hyper-focused version of that extreme integration, not into society, but into one single person.
So the loneliness paradoxically coexists with this pathological over-integration into one relationship.
Precisely. The individual self has outsourced its will to live. If the person they've outsourced it to disappears, survival feels, and perhaps is, functionally impossible for them. The bridge becomes this chilling confirmation of that dependency.
Okay, that's incredibly bleak. We've got the speaker trapped in this bubble of unique pain they want banned and simultaneously trapped in a relationship where separation equals self-destruction. It seems hopeless.
It really does paint a picture of utter despair, which makes the very last line of the song so incredibly striking. It just flips the entire thing.
Right. Section 4, the narrative turn of resilience. And it's just one short line at the very end.
The resolution, the coda, it's a day that I'm glad I survived.
After everything we've heard, the most loneliest, the banning, the dying wish, suddenly, this simple statement, how does it work as a resolution?
It works because it introduces agency and shifts the perspective entirely. If we think about it in terms of narratology, the study of narrative structure, the verses were mostly passive descriptions of suffering. It was lonely, it should be banned. The bridge expressed a dependent desire.
But I survived is active.
It's active. It's something the speaker did. It reframes the entire preceding experience. The lonely day is no longer this abstract, potentially endless state of being. It's now positioned as a concrete event, a finite test that has been overcome.
It puts boundaries around the suffering. It happened and it ended.
Exactly. And this is where resilience psychology comes in beautifully. Resilience isn't about magically erasing the pain or finding instant happiness. It's about the ability to withstand adversity, to bounce back, or in this case, to simply endure.
So the victory isn't becoming not lonely, it's surviving the day of loneliness.
Precisely. The speaker hasn't claimed to have solved the underlying issue, but they successfully navigated the acute crisis. They passed the test the day presented.
What about the glad part?
Yeah.
Glad I survived. After wanting the day banned, glad seems mild, or maybe profound.
I think it's profound because it's not overstated. It's not joy or elation. Given the depth of the suffering described, the gladness likely stems from the pure relief of endurance. It's the feeling you get when a terrible ordeal is finally over.
The exhale after holding your breath for too long.
Exactly. It's the recognition that the narrative has shifted from victim, this is happening to me, to survivor, I made it through. The gladness comes from acknowledging the simple, fundamental victory of persistence. The absence of that acute suffering feels like gladness.
That makes the ending incredibly powerful in its understatement. It doesn't erase the darkness, but it finds value in having passed through it. Can we tie this to philosophy too?
Oh, absolutely. This line is almost a perfect, concise expression of Stoic ethics, particularly the core Stoic idea of the dichotomy of control.
Which is, remind us.
The Stoics, like Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius, taught that wisdom lies in clearly distinguishing between what is within our control and what isn't. External events, other people's actions, even our own overwhelming initial emotional reactions, those are largely outside our direct control.
Like the lonely day itself, or the intense feeling that it should be banned.
Exactly. Those were presented as uncontrollable forces acting upon the speaker. What is within our control, according to Stoicism, is our judgment, our response, our will, our endurance.
Our choice of how to act, or even just how to bear it.
Right. The speaker couldn't ban the day. They couldn't magically fix the relationship dynamic, perhaps. Those things were external or overwhelming. But they could choose to endure. They could resist the pull towards giving up, towards the self-annihilation hinted at in the bridge.
So simply continuing to exist through the day was the controllable action.
It was the controllable response. And recognizing I survived is acknowledging that victory. It's the triumph of internal fortitude over external or internal chaos. The virtue, for the Stoics, is found precisely in that act of enduring what you cannot change.
Wow. So we started with the line flammed for bad grammar, and we end with a line that perfectly encapsulates a core tenet of Stoic philosophy. The critics really missed the forest for the trees, didn't they?
It certainly seems that way. They focused on the surface, the linguistic correctness, and missed the profound emotional and philosophical mechanisms at play just beneath.
So summing this up, this whole deep dive seems to show that the song's supposed simplicity was just incredibly misleading.
Utterly. When you start looking through these different lenses, semiotics for the grammar, effective jurisprudence for the banning, attachment theory for the bridge, resilience and stoicism for the ending, this seemingly simple ballad just explodes with complexity.
We saw that Most Loneliest wasn't a mistake, but maybe a deliberate, or at least effective way to signal overwhelming emotion that resonated more than perfect grammar could have.
And the demand to ban the day wasn't just naive, it was this powerful expression of utter helplessness, highlighting the limits of external control over internal states.
Then the bridge, often heard as romantic, revealed potentially darker layers of codependency and the terrifying loss of self, drawing on psychological and even sociological ideas.
And all of that darkness, all that despair was ultimately reframed and given meaning by that final, quiet assertion of survival. The active choice to endure becomes the ultimate victory.
It really underscores how critical reception and actual cultural impact, or even depth, can be miles apart. Maybe the real value isn't in ticking boxes for complexity, but in how a work connects across these different human experiences.
I think that's right. Lonely Day stops being just a radio-friendly rock ballad and becomes this rich document about the human condition. It hits these universal notes, how hard it is to express extreme pain, the futility of trying to escape our feelings through external means, the dangers of losing ourselves in others, and crucially, the power we find just in survival.
It's quite something. Daron Malakian tapped into something incredibly raw and honest there.
He really did. And maybe its power lies in that raw honesty, that vulnerability, which resonated with millions, even if it didn't fit the expected mold for the band. It became this unlikely anthem of getting through it.
So we've journeyed through intense isolation, a desire to legislate feelings away, a potentially self-destructive dependency, and landed on the simple gladness of having survived. It's quite the arc.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, our listeners. We've spent this time analyzing the test presented in Lonely Day. Now, maybe take a moment to think about your own experiences. What's an emotional or existential test you are currently navigating, or one you've recently come through?
And thinking about that experience, how does the simple fact of your endurance, the unglamorous act of just getting through it day by day, maybe redefine what success or victory looks like when the storm finally passes?
Sometimes just making it to the next sunrise is the biggest win there is.
A really powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.